All right. So hey everyone, my name is Chaz Hayden. Happy to be here. Thank you to Warren and Brockton Public Library for hosting me. So I'm the author of the new young adult novel Diet Soda Club. This is my second novel, following up from my debut, The First Thing About You. So I just have a little bit of a presentation, just kind of about myself, and then we'll just be really casual and feel free to ask any questions you might have or stop me at any time. So yeah, I consider myself an author and an accessibility advocate. So, like I said, my debut novel, The First Thing About You, and I'll get more into that in the future. But I was born with a disability called spinal muscular atrophy. And this just means I get to ride around in a really awesome wheelchair. I've been driving a powered chair since I was 2 years old. So longer, I'm now 28. So been driving longer than most people have been driving a car, but it's just who I am. And I wouldn't change any part of that because of the experiences I've had, which have led me to want to share those through my writing. So I'm an accessibility advocate. So where I live in Pennsylvania, um, about a year and a half ago, I partnered with a TV station and we started a series called Front Row with Chaz. And what I do is I go around the area of Pennsylvania, kind of the big cities that are near me, and I highlight businesses, venues, and events that are making their event or service accessible and inclusive for people with disabilities. So you can find Front Row with Chaz on YouTube. All of the episodes are on there. And it's been really great because I always said that as a person with a disability, I find that I often don't venture to new places that are unknown because I don't know if I can fully experience them. So this TV series has given me the opportunity to put out into my community where people in all kinds of disabilities, whether they're neurodivergent or they are in a wheelchair like me, or maybe they have a vision impairment, what are the places that are going to be the most accommodating for them? Um, so that's been really, really fun to film. So just some timeline. I was born in 1996. At the age of 3 months, I was diagnosed with SMA, but I have really amazing parents that never let me kind of pity myself or treated me any different and always pushed me to follow my dreams. Um, which sort of brings me to I started college at a very, very young age. I only did my freshman year of high school, and then I immediately the next year started at the age of 15 at a community college in New Jersey, um, where I was living. And I was a full-time student there taking college classes. And after 2 years, I transferred after I earned my associate's degree to the University of Arizona, um, where I got to experience a whole new culture living on the west coast of the United States, being on a huge university campus. I was a finance major, which surprises a lot of people. But back then, I very much enjoyed numbers, and I was not thinking about writing yet. Um, but after I graduated from college, I moved back to the East Coast and I took a very fancy internship at a fancy high rise in Manhattan within finance. And I realized that was a version of me, but it wasn't entirely who I wanted to be or who I was. And during that time, I was reading a lot. I was thinking about my experiences I've had throughout my childhood. And I wanted to figure out a way to share that. I'm not very good at writing about myself. In fact, I find writing about myself to be kind of boring, but I thought that the experiences and the feelings and emotions I've had dealing with a disability, growing up, being a teenager, I could fit some of those lived experiences into a novel that other people could relate to on their own level. And very fortunate that my debut novel, The First Thing About You, was published in 2022. So here's just some photos over the years. On my very first wheelchair, like I said, I started driving a chair when I was 2 years old. Um, I'm super tiny right there. I might be like 2 or 3 years old on a vacation in Florida. And then I'm a huge football fan. When I was 12 or 13, I did a Make-A-Wish and I wished to meet the New York Giants and got to spend a whole day with them and give them a speech, as you can see right here. And then that's my photo on graduation day from the University of Arizona. And then just a chill picture. I have a lot of tattoos. I kind of, always am collecting tattoos and thinking about what tattoo I want to get next. So, all of those experiences I just mentioned kind of boil down to a saying. One of my favorite poems in the world is by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, "Do not go where the path may lead. Instead, go where there is no path and leave a trail." And I sort of summarize that into two different things: be different and leave a trail. Be different goes back to the alternate route I took for my education. Um, while all my friends were continuing on their traditional path, I found a way that allowed me to be a more independent student, to sort of move forward with the future that I wanted. And I always pride myself on being creative, and I think that just goes back to being disabled. You're always trying to find, you always are facing barriers, and you have to find different ways to overcome that. So then that goes down to leave a trail. And what that means to me is as I'm doing all these things in my life, I want to make sure that I'm leaving breadcrumbs or a trail for all the people that are younger than me, that are in similar situations, for them to follow, in case they need some assistance on what's out there or what they can do with their life. They can see that someone else just like them is doing that. All right, so on to my debut, The First Thing About You. Um, I wanted to share a story that was about a boy with SMA, dealing with being a teenager, dealing with disability. Um, but I didn't want to write about myself. I wanted to make sure it was relatable, and anyone, whether they have a disability or not, could empathize with it. Thus, we have The First Thing About You, um, which follows 15-year-old Harris. Him and his family moves from California to New Jersey. He takes it as an opportunity to reinvent himself, to be known as more than just the boy in the power chair. But Harris kind of has an obsession with knowing everybody's favorite color. He thinks that by knowing your favorite color, he knows everything about you. How to communicate, whether you can be friends. To him, it's a way for him to judge people the same way that he assumes people are judging his disability. But throughout the story, he'll learn that it may not be the case. Um, I was very fortunate that this book received a lot of praise. It was nominated and won a lot of awards, and I'm very happy that even to this day I have people that reach out to me and tell me how much the story has taught them, and what it means to them, and that really means a lot to me too. Um, and I believe, Warren, you have a copy of it at your library.
Uh, yeah, I think we have a few copies.
Awesome.
Um, I think we have at least two.
Awesome. So you can check that out. But why we're all really here is for my brand new novel, Diet Soda Club. So when I sat down to write another novel, and I wanted to take I was inspired by The First Thing About You, my first book. And particularly, I was inspired by the sibling relationship, Harris and his older brother, Ollie. And in that story, we see that there's this dynamic between siblings where one has a disability and the other doesn't. But I don't dive too deep into that dynamic. We know that they love each other and they support each other, but I wanted to focus an entire story on a sibling relationship where one's disabled and one isn't. And what if they are in a family situation that's not entirely the most supportive and not the best? So there we get Diet Soda Club, which follows 17-year-old Reed Beckett and his 10-year-old sister Beatrice, who has spinal muscular atrophy, the same disability as me and Harris. And Reed has been by Beatrice's side her entire life, in and out of the hospital, ever since their dad died when Beatrice was a baby. Um, and their mom has been around, but mostly just trying to keep them fed and a roof over their head. But when their mom and the family get some news that Beatrice needs to have life-saving surgery, their mom sort of freaks out a little bit and decides to run away and go on what is supposed to be a 2-day vacation with her new boyfriend. But that 2-day vacation turns into a month. And now Reed and Beatrice are stuck in their apartment with nothing but themselves and an empty pantry. So, what are they going to do in order to survive? And Reed gets a little bit creative with the help of his sister Beatrice and a friend of his, a new old friend, as he would say. But what's really important to me is I didn't want this story to just be about someone saving the disabled person. Because we see that plot in so many films, and it just over stigmatizes that people with disabilities need to be saved, they need to be helped. And what I hope when people read this story is that they figure out that in the end, Beatrice saves herself. Um, and I've just been really fortunate also to receive some really great reviews. But what I would like to do, if it's okay with all of you, is to read a chapter from Diet Soda Club.
Great.
If you don't have any questions so far. All right. So I'm going to start in chapter 26. This is a chapter that I think stands alone on its own by itself. Um, Reed and Beatrice have been alone for a few weeks now, about a week or about 2 weeks, and they have just visited the surgeon who's going to do Beatrice's surgery, her life-saving surgery that she needs. Um, and they've been kind of surviving, sort of, but as anything, when you're a 10-year-old, you have good days and you have bad days, and this is sort of one of those in between days. So this is chapter 26. The next few days, I kept looking over my back, waiting for that knock on the apartment door that would trouble my world or finding cops at my locker. Thankfully, none of that happened. What did happen was a morning announcement from Helena that the school would be starting random locker checks. It couldn't be a coincidence, and I felt like I should apologize to everyone in my homeroom. Obviously, I didn't. I kept my head down the rest of the week. I focused on Beatrice, who seemed to be doing a good job of handling the afterthoughts of the appointment with Dr. Jensen and listening to me on the phone making more appointments. Then the weekend hit, and everything fell apart. That's not a fishtail braid, Beatrice whined. My hands twisted her hair, but it was a tangled mess. I don't know how to do that. She's showing you in the video. My sister pointed to the laptop, which was sitting next to the bathroom sink, replaying the same hairstyling tutorial over and over. Why can't I just do pigtails? You love pigtails. Because because today I want a fishtail braid. We've been going at this for over an hour. The tutorial repeated so many times I'd memorized the script, but somehow couldn't figure out that damn fishtail braid. But I kept trying as calmly as I possibly could, because I knew Bee's sudden obsession over something she usually doesn't care about was just her way of trying not to think about everything else. How about this? I asked my sister, moving my hands away from my 20th attempt. Beatrice intensely examined herself in the mirror, turning her head side to side and reaching her hand to feel the braid. Then, like a spontaneous tsunami that devastates an entire city, she started crying big and loud and scary. I want mom, she sobbed. Mom's not here. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Do you want me to try again? Beatrice shook her head. Seriously, I'll try to get it right. I have nothing else to do today. My sister didn't answer. She just lowered her head and wept, and I couldn't stand looking at it happening, feeling like I could have prevented the meltdown if I knew how to do it, if I knew how to braid her hair, or if our mom was around to be a mom, or if Beatrice didn't need surgery. There were a lot of ors. I grabbed my phone and headed out to the bathroom. What, who are you calling? Beatrice yelled to me. Someone who can help. It doesn't matter what I said when I called or what she said. All that matters is she said she would come. Who's coming over? Beatrice asked. I finally got her to settle down and breathe after she nearly choked on her spit, and I had to run a few extra nebulizer treatments on her. A friend, I said. I didn't know you had friends. You know, you could be nicer. I'm trying to help you with your annoying braid. I didn't mean it like that. I just didn't know you were friends with people. It's cool. Well, and this is kind of a new old friend. What does that mean? Honestly, I don't know. But she can help. I know that for sure. Exactly as I finished that sentence, there was three quick knocks on the door. The sound instantly reminded me of when I was a child. She's still not the same. That both terrified and comforted me. I opened the door and let Helena Shaw into my life for the first time in 10 years. Thanks for coming, I said, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. No problem, she said, probably wondering the same. I closed the door and led her into the living room where Beatrice was waiting. Helena froze when she saw her. This is my sister Beatrice, I said. Beatrice smiled and waved. Helena did the same, with a look of utter confusion. Do you know how to do a fishtail braid? Beatrice politely asked. Helena looked at Beatrice, then me, before looking back at my sister. Yes, I do. Great, I shouted. She's all yours. Have fun. Beatrice happily spun around and waved Helena to follow her. Everything is set up in the bathroom. By the way, you're really pretty. 15 minutes later, they came back out, and Beatrice had a fishtail braid that might have been better than the one in the tutorial. I mean, her hair was even decorated with butterfly clips and some colorful ribbon, which I knew we didn't have. Helena must carry around crap like that, I guess. Yo-yo, isn't it beautiful? Beatrice exclaimed. Yup, your hair definitely looks like a fish's tail. Beatrice turned to Helena. Yo-yo tried to do this all morning, but he was so bad, he almost pulled my hair out. Why do you call him Yo-yo? Helena asked Beatrice. Because he used to carry around a yo-yo all the time, Beatrice answered. Oh my God, I forgot about that yo-yo. That was like sixth grade, right? Yeah, I said, and according to my sister, it's my only memorable characteristic. Can I call you yo-yo? Absolutely not. A few seconds passed before they finally came down from busting my childhood hobby. Then we kind of just stood there in the living room. The awkward tension was almost tangible. Suddenly, I no longer wanted Helena there, mostly because I couldn't stop looking at her. Well, thank you for your help, I said. B, can you thank Helena so she can go? Thanks, Helena. B can't leave. It'd be so boring the rest of the day without you. Hey, I'm not boring, I said, defending myself. Yes, you are. Helena, you have to stay and save me from being the only girl. I guess I can stay, Helena glanced at me. Yay, Beatrice yelled. She rolled her wheelchair over to me at the couch, and Helena sat next to her. You have to tell me everything about my brother. Well, what do you want to know? Well, first, how do you know him? Yo-Yo said you're new old friends, whatever that means. I guess we are, but I also know your brother because we're both at yearbook club together. Beatrice's eyes widened. We're in a club too. It's called Diet Soda Club. Our dad started it. Helena stared right at me, smirking. Oh, really? And what does that entail? Not much, my sister told her. Except for sometimes we drink soda when we're feeling really sad. I get sad sometimes. Can I join? Definitely. But the initiation is really tough. What's the initiation? You have to chug a can of soda and then burp your name. I shrugged when Helena looked at me for confirmation. Honestly, I was just surprised she was loosening up enough to consider doing it. But my sister tends to have that effect on people. Helena stood up and followed Beatrice to the kitchen to grab soda. Beatrice brought me a Diet Dr. Pepper and one for herself. I'll demonstrate, Beatrice told Helena. She took a big gulp and then forced out a burp that sort of sounded like her name. Bea thought it was the most hysterical thing. Helena concentrated on her soda, one of the Diet Pepsis. Okay, I think I got it. If only I was ruthless enough to snap a pic of Helena, sipping soda, the first thing she banned during her presidential reign on our student government. I could use it as blackmail. She threatened to tell anyone about the fake IDs I was selling. But I ignored my phone, letting the opportunity slip past me. Beatrice wouldn't have wanted me to do that anyway. Watching Helena try to burp was everything I expected. Dainty and painful. The weakest burp ever, Beatrice said. Sorry, I haven't practiced in a long time. All right, you can try one more time. I'm just not sure that your Diet Soda Club material. One thing I know for sure about Helena was that she wasn't about to be denied entry into any club, fake or not. So she tipped her head back and chugged that Diet Pepsi until the can crumbled in her hand. When she came up for air, there was a familiar gleam in her eyes. Then she burped, not just her name, but her full name, first, middle, and last. As gross as it sounds, I know she had it in her. Beatrice sat stunned for a moment. Wow, that was intense, she said. Thank you. So am I in the club? Definitely. You might even be better than my brother. Helena gazed over at me, taunting me. Let's see. Let's see then. I had no desire to chug a Dr. Pepper just to prove to Helena I could still do something as silly as burping. But if I didn't, I would have never heard the end of it from my sister. I stood up from the couch just to make sure I had full flow of all my internal organs. In a move I've perfected over the years, I popped the soda can tab with one hand and chugged. Unlike Helena, I didn't need to drink the whole thing to get the bubbles moving up my throat. I reared back and belched. Hi, I'm Reed Beckett. There was a brief moment of silence before Beatrice started laughing to the point of tears. Even Helena laughed and gave me a high five, and I'll admit, I laughed at myself too. So that's just a sample of one of the chapters. Um, from here on, Helena kind of joins in on reading Beatrice. She soon figures out that they're alone and they need some help for Beatrice to survive. And for Helena and her old friend, well, her new old friend, Reed. Um, and what I love so much about their friendship is you see it evolve over the story. You know that they've known each other for a long time, but there's something in between them that stopped them from being friends. And now they get the chance to rekindle that relationship. Um, so that's all I had for reading, and I'd love to, Lauren, if you had questions or if you wanted to bring up some discussion topics, or if anyone had questions.
Yes, so I have some questions myself, but I'll let other people ask any questions they might have first.
Uh,
So,
I, I have a question.
All right, Thomas.
Yeah, so the idea for the titular club itself, did that come from real life? Because it sounds like something that could exist in real life. But
Well, thank you. I think that's just a really big compliment. I intentionally try to make things feel very authentic. I myself am not a huge soda drinker. I do love Dr. Pepper, but not Diet Dr. Pepper. But there's a reason why they drink diet soda. And that is sort of explained throughout the novel and what that means to not only Helena and Reed and Beatrice, but kind of how that relates to the overwhelming topic of kind of making all the wrong choices for all the right reasons. And they kind of go into how that's kind of paralleled with each other.
okay, yeah, yeah, it seems like something I could imagine real teenagers coming up with.
No, I thank you for saying that. I hope so. Yeah,
Certainly, it's a good idea, I think.
thank you.
okay, any other questions?
I can't wait to read the book.
Thank you.
Um,
I was gonna read the rest of the chapter, but it spoils it a bit. So I just stopped right there.
yeah, I thought that gave a pretty good sample.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, it's always hard to pick a chapter that kind of lives isolated from the rest, but I think that gives you everyone a good taste, no pun intended, um of all three kind of main characters that are there, and this is the first time they're all coming together.
So if no one else has any questions at the moment, I mean, I think we've discussed this a little bit, but how is it different writing from someone who was very different from yourself? Because
Mhm.
the first book seemed kind of semi-autobiographical, and this was
Mhm.
from the caregiver's perspective, so it's a very different
Yeah,
perspective. So how is that?
I think for me, you know, growing up having an older brother and sort of he was always around. He came to everything for me. I went to all of his stuff. I was able to hopefully empathize with what he was going through with living with a disabled sibling. And I thought in order to tell this story, it had to be from the point of view of the sibling that wasn't disabled. And the reason for that is because I wanted to show that there there's like this moral ambiguity in what he has to do, where I think a lot of times when we're growing up, we're told that everything is yes, no, right, wrong. And as we get older, we start to realize that a lot of our choices have a grayish area to them, unfortunately. And we sometimes don't know how to deal with that, especially when we're teenagers. Um, we always feel like we're making the wrong choice. But maybe there is no wrong choice, or maybe there's no right choice. There's just a choice that we have to make. And I thought that in order to portray that the most, it had to be from the perspective of the non-disabled sibling. And on top of that, I wanted to make sure that the two siblings, one was a boy and one was a girl, for the only the reason that there's a few scenes where Reed doesn't quite know if the way he's taking care of Beatrice is appropriate or not. He has to bathe her, he has to get her dressed. He's her brother, but he's sort of like, yeah, she's my 10-year-old sister right now. But what if she's 15 or 17 or 20 and I still have to bathe her and I still have to get her dressed? Like, I know these things happen, but is that okay? Is it appropriate for me to do that? I thought there was this really interesting, like, polarization in his thoughts and how he views his sister, and the actions he has to do, very adult actions he has to do no matter what.
And that makes sense. And I guess my other question is, I've read the book, and I know a lot of you haven't had the opportunity yet because we're still waiting to get it at the library. But in the afterword, you mentioned that the book went through several different versions, with the only thing remaining consistent was the brother-sister relationship. So
Yep.
I think at one point you said it was a murder mystery or something.
Yeah.
So what were some of those different versions?
Yeah, so when I sat down to write it, like I said, I wanted to focus on a sibling dynamic. And there was many iterations of the book. One started out sort of a murder mystery with a whole bunch of friends, and not just Reed and Helena, but 4 or 5 other friends. And I felt like their storyline and the plot line of this murder mystery that these friends were trying to figure out was sort of taken away from what I was trying to at the heart of the story. And the heart of the story was always Reed and Beatrice. I thought it was really important to kind of, self-edit and move away all the other noise and just get down straightforward to what was my intention. And my intention was to make sure Reed and Beatrice shine and not sort of any other subplot.
Makes sense. Um,
So I
does anyone,
got the murder mystery, I got like almost 70 to 100 pages into it. Um, and I was like, nope, this is not working. And I started over from page 1.
that must have been kind of discouraging.
It is. the best thing when you're editing a book, if you have the urge and you just go and you do something and it feels right, you know it's the right thing to do. There are times in this story and in the first thing about you where I removed entire characters, where I removed entire chapters and scenes. And if you just wake up one day and it just feels right, then you know that's what you have to do to make the story better.
Makes sense. So let's see. So did you deliberately try to make the family dynamic very different in this one? Because I know the
Yeah.
first book, it seems like his family is more supportive, and this one
Yeah,
obviously not.
in the first one, the family is definitely most supportive, closer to the family dynamic I grew up in. But I thought it'd be interesting if I took that, right, two siblings, but then flip that the family situation on its head, complete 180. What if you only have one parent? What if that one parent isn't the most supportive, isn't around, doesn't know how to be a parent for one reason or another? And I hope that in this story, um, you don't despise the mom. I think at some points you will. You'll really hate her. But as you read it and towards the end of it, you realize that she is just a human and she's dealing with the situation in the way that she knows how to deal with it right now. Um, and that might be kind of hard for some people to read, but unfortunately, we see that all the time, um, in the news, in the world of people doing things we just don't understand. But I think in this we sort of hear her side of it. Um, and then we also see Reed's reaction to that, which is something that was I'm not gonna spoil it, but how does he deal with the mom, eventually being back and moving forward with her.
Any other questions from anyone?
Are you gonna take the murder mystery and write another book about somebody else?
Potentially, I still have it saved. It would still work on its own. I think I've definitely pondered it now that I want to write a third, and I'm starting to write a third. It's been like, do I want to go back to that? I think eventually I will because I think the murder mystery with the group of friends that I had started to build, minus Reed and Beatrice, I think it still worked on its own. So I'll definitely return to it.
I think it would be good for the young adults to see a disabled person function like them on
Yeah,
their own terms. I think that would be an awesome book.
that's true. The murder mystery one is very much about a group of teenagers that live out during the night because they feel like the daytime's just not made for them.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's definitely on the top of my list to finish. So yeah, I'm happy you said that though. Yeah.
I mean, I live in a town where there are kids that are in the school system that are disabled severely to moderately, and the
Hmm.
kids graduate high school and go on to have full lives. But
Yeah, for
in
sure.
some places they don't. And it
Yeah.
would be good to see those kind of books for kids that could diversify themselves.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And that's what I hope my debut, the first thing about you has done. I've had a lot of people who are disabled reach out to me and say they didn't share the same disability, but they saw themselves
Mhm.
in the experiences that Harris goes through with his teachers, with his classmate, falling in love, having a crush on someone. I think it's always really important to me to make sure that when I'm writing characters who are disabled, that I write them as a human first and have their disability woven in throughout the story. That way we see the struggles and the obstacles that they deal with, but it's not at the forefront of being pity or inspirational but it's just like, hey, these are the things I have to deal with. This is how I'm dealing with it, and dealing with it is pushing forward the plot and the storyline that I'm trying to develop.
Anyone else have any questions? Um,
Lauren, did you have any more questions? I feel like you were gonna have a ton.
yeah, I'm thinking if I have more. Um, I just don't want to ask one that's going to spoil things because I have some, but I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't read it yet.
All right,
Um, So
you'll have to ask me after.
yeah, I mean, I think I sort of already asked this, but did you find it difficult? You said you felt like it was kind of natural to write from the caregiver's perspective, but
Yeah,
were you tempted to do kind of different perspectives, or did you want to stick with just the one
it's
perspective?
it's tough because publishing. This is sort of a this goes back to how the publishing industry works, which is everything wants to be classified into a genre, right? And it's like if it's told from Reed's perspective, he's 17, that's a YA, a young adult. If it's told from Beatrice's perspective, that's considered a middle grade because she's 10, right? So if it's told from both of them, then the publishing industry goes, wait, how do I categorize this? Where does this go? Um, so it's kind of hard to do that when the age difference is so much.
But
I
it
could
still
see
could
that.
be read by an adult.
But yeah, and then all of it is still, that's a very good point. Then all of it's still read by adults. Yep.
I've read a lot of YA books that are absolutely amazing. And for me as an adult to say that, I'm like, yeah, they're good books, you gotta read them.
I always say that too. I have people say that I write for children. I'm like, I don't write for children. I write about children, but it's
Hmm.
not for children. Anyone can read it, and I hope everyone can relate to it. I still find myself reading mostly YA. Yeah, it's a genre I love. I think it's super authentic, the stories that are told, and at any age, very, very relatable.
Who is the guy who starred in How I Met Your Mother?
Oh,
Neil Patrick
Neil
Harris.
Patrick Harris? Yeah.
I was on a book club Zoom with him, and he wrote about, they were called the Magical Misfits, about a group of school-age kids who went around to solve a mystery about magic. But
Mm-hmm.
they were fascinating. I read all 4 books. I mean, I, and I think sometimes people corner themselves into reading certain
Yep.
genres, and it's good to open up. Then you can say to adults, read this one, or say to the kids, this is great, you gotta read this one. So,
I still know some adults, um, granted they're authors, but they'll go back and read picture books. Just a lot of those have great stories in them. You know,
mm-hmm,
they're only fit into 15 or 20 pages with some photos, but they're actually kind of deep, a lot of the picture books.
mm-hmm.
So I guess kind of jumping off that, are you tempted to sometimes write books featuring older characters or maybe follow up on some of the characters from your previous books as they age?
Well, I think and Warren, you didn't say if you found this Easter egg, but there is an Easter egg in Diet Soda Club. If you read the first thing about you, there is a mention of a character from the first novel. And I like to do that. I like to kind of have all the characters live in one universe, but you can read it in no particular order. But I didn't just want to mention a character. I wanted them to, just for the sake of mentioning them, I wanted their action to affect the story. So if you
Um,
read Diet Soda Club or you read the first thing about you, it's going to be a very brief one-line sentence, and
I
you have to
think I
pick up on it.
I think I missed that actually. You'll have to tell me what that is later.
But no, I just say it now. So, Miranda, who's in the first thing about you, who's the main character with Harris, she is mentioned in Diet Soda Club. And there's something that she does that affects Reed and Beatrice. So
Oh, is
Diet
that
Soda
the
Club takes place technically a few years before the first thing about you, but in the same town.
is that the locker thing? Is that?
Yeah, the locker checks.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I somehow missed that because I guess I wasn't looking for it.
Yeah, we're thinking about it. Yeah. And that's why I like to do it because it's like it's there. And if you notice it, you notice it. Awesome. If you don't, it makes no difference. But it makes me happy that it's in there.
Yeah, I like books that are written in kind of a shared universe, even if they don't relate directly to one another.
Yeah. But in terms of writing older characters, I know there's a genre of new adult, um, but I think publishers would tell you that doesn't exist. Um, so I think if I were to get older, I don't know if I'd write novels or I'd try and write maybe a screenplay or something like that if I'm gonna get older. But I've definitely thought about writing for younger, and that honestly might be the direction I'm going for my third novel is a little bit younger.
Graphic novel.
Yeah, then I have to find an illustrator.
Okay.
That's
well.
tough.
Mm. So you don't know any illustrators right now who you'd use?
So the way it actually works is like unless you have an already formed like partnership with someone or you illustrate yourself, if you need an illustrator, you actually write the text, and then when the text rights are bought by a publisher, then they go out and find an illustrator,
Mm,
who then illustrates, and yeah,
All right, makes sense.
that's how most picture books are done.
Yeah, I guess unless there's already an established
Unless,
relationship.
yeah, unless there's a or the author themselves illustrates. Yeah.
So how much say do you have over the covers of your books?
A lot. Fortunately, you don't have to. There are some authors that don't want anything to do with it. For me, I think that the cover is the first thing you know about a story. It's the first thing you see, and that's the introduction to the characters inside. This one for Diet Soda Club is really, really tough to design. Um, the publisher went through a few different designers, and were sending me kind of drafts, and it just didn't feel right to us. Um, and what happened was there was someone that actually worked at the publisher in the art department that was sitting in all of those meetings and emails, and just happened to doodle kind of that soda can that you see with the words in the middle of it, and sent it to I guess her boss, and the boss was like, "Send it to Chaz. If he likes it, we'll just use that." And they sent me kind of a few different variations. They sent me the one you see above, the very colorful. Actually, let me hold on. Give me a second. I'll try and show you guys what gets sent. Let me see if I can find it. Give me, I have it saved. Let's see. Maybe I don't. Um, but yeah, maybe I don't have it. But essentially, what happens is they'll send you a few different variations. So they sent me like the one above my head, which is what we ultimately ended up using. They sent me the European version, which is a black background with a silver soda can. And then they sent me a few other versions that had like red letters or orange letters or blue letters. And then we kind of combined different variations of them, but very fortunate. And And then I picked the version, and then about 2, maybe 10 days later, I get another email from my publisher like, okay, here's like an updated version of the cover, and it was purple. And I'm like, you never showed me a purple version. That wasn't a part of the discussion. And I'm like, yeah, well, we decided that maybe purple. I'm like, nope, I do not. Just like when I opened up the original versions, it made me go, wow, like I want that, right? So I always base it off of like when I open up the image that they send, does it make me go, oh my gosh, like I would buy that, you know? And the purple one definitely did not. So it just didn't stand out. So we went back to the one above my head, which I like. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I do too. It's definitely eye-catching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have uh I have the library version of the book that I checked out right here, which maybe is just kind of a closer view for people, and it definitely is eye-catching, I think.
Mhm.
Yep. And I really like the if you go on my Instagram page, I have a video of the European version and you can see how it mirrors and reflects. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I saw that. I think I watched that.
Yeah.
And I watched some of your videos showing the accessible places. I don't think you've done one in a while though, right?
Yeah, so right now for like the fall and winter, we've been on a bit of a pause filming. You also have to like find places to film.
Yeah,
If
makes
I lived in
sense.
like if I lived in like Manhattan, we'd never run out of places. But I live in a fairly city-ish metropolitan area, but you still have to find places that want to be filmed and they have something to talk about what they've done to make their business or their venue more accessible. But yeah, we're hoping to start filming again, maybe over the summer.
Nice.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, Anyone else have any questions? Let's see. There's a few people we haven't heard from, not to put anyone on the spot, but anyone we haven't heard from have any questions? I guess not.
Well, thank you so much for watching, all of you. That means a lot for joining.
Yeah, this was great, and I look forward to your next book.
Yes.
It sounds like it might be a little different.
Yes, thanks, Donna. Yeah, it is a little bit different. Very, very different than what I've been writing. But I'm excited to start it.
Yeah, I always like it when authors will have each book be very different from the previous book that they did.
Yeah, I think as an author, it's a bit terrifying because, you do establish a certain following of people that, especially after two, that kind of are expecting a certain genre or subgenre of writing. I'm not saying that my third is going to be completely different. It's still very contemporary, but um, in a bit of a different direction, though.
All right, sounds good. Anyone who missed some of the beginning of this, the recording will be up on the YouTube channel. We just have to do a little bit of editing of the beginning where we're just waiting for people to log on. But this was great. Thanks for coming, Chaz.
Thanks so
It's a
much for
lot.
having me. Yeah.
All right, and I will see two of you at the book club on Saturday, I guess. All right, bye everyone.
Bye.
Good night.